All right, so today we are doing Administrator Basics 1. This is the first part of a 5 to 6 part webinar series. So definitely, if you haven't signed up for the rest, be on the lookout for an additional email for some of those. And again, this is part 1. So just a little housekeeping here. What we're going to do is try and keep this, the actual training piece, to 45 minutes. And if you could submit any questions using the GoToMeeting question panel on the right. At the end, we will try and answer as many of those questions as possible. And anything we do not get to, we'll reach out in the next couple of days through support. And if you think of anything after the call, definitely reach out to support@doublenot.com. And again, this video will be posted online as soon as we have a chance to get it up and running. So on today's agenda, we have setting up financial accounts, configuring calendar activities, understanding registrant types, using registrant attributes, working with waitlist, and testing events. So I'm going to hop over here into one of our testing environments. So here we're going to start with setting up financial accounts. So one thing to point out, depending on what level of permissions you have, you may see some or all of the same things I am showing on the left-hand side of the feature list. So in order to set up a financial account, you're going to want to go to Financial Accounts and then Create New Account here. So one important piece to this is you'll always want to create this financial account at the top level organization. So if you're an organization that has multiple organizations here, breaking out your content, you always want to make sure you're at the top level org. If I click Create New Account here, I then have the ability to give it an account name. This share account feature here, I recommend setting this to the third option of this organization, affiliates, and immediate child organizations. And this gives me the ability to assign this account to another organization under my top level org. And then the last piece here is GL account. So here you can enter your GL account number to show up on financial reporting. Once you create that, it'll be in the list below. And then with any events or facilities or memberships or store products that you create, you have the ability to assign that financial account. So the money flows when someone makes that purchase, it'll flow on financial reporting into that account. The next piece here is configuring calendar activities. So if I go back to the feature list page and we go down to event management, we are going to be looking at the first tab here of calendar activities. So in order to create a new one, we're going to want to click new calendar activity. The first piece here, description, this is the title of the event. So I'm going to call this Day Camp 2020. Activity date is the start date of this event. So if it's just a one-day event, we can just put 1 day there. We can put the first date here. And if it's 1 day, we'll want to put 6/1 here as well, but I'm going to make mine till 6/5. And then activity time, so this is the start and end time of the event. So we're going to go 10 a.m. This next piece, frequency. So frequency is going to sort of serve two different ways. So daily, weekly, monthly, these options will function as completely separate events, recurring based on how you set that up. So if a user wanted to come to all of them, they'd have to sign up separately. Custom allows you to add new instances. So when you use custom frequency, this allows you to say this event happens on 6/1 from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then it could be 6/2 from noon to 6. And customers just register once and are only charged once, but then they're expected to come to each of the dates in that sequence. For testing purposes, we're going to leave this at once. These next two items, URL to event pictures and URL for additional details. So these will link people outside of DoubleKnot on the main landing page for this event to additional content. I do not recommend using this. It can be confusing if a user clicks that link. They may have difficulties getting back to DoubleKnot. So what I like to tell people is anything that you're going to link to here, you can build it down in the details section here. So you have the ability to add pictures if you want to put pictures on that landing page, or add any text and event details right here. The one piece we skipped is contact email. So this shows up in a couple places. This is going to show on the landing page, and it is also going to show on their receipt as who to contact with any questions. We're going to just fill out a couple details here. Next, we have the address. So these next couple lines deal with where the event is actually taking place. So if we fill out an address here, all the way down to we can go to latitude and longitude. On that event landing page, we are going to have a link to Google Maps that will show us how to get to this location. Next, display. So this toggle here allows you to say whether or not this event should display on the calendar, or if it's a private event where only people that with the link to that should be able to register, you can change this to do not display on public calendar. Lastly, if you are displaying it on the public calendar, you can choose what color you want that to display as. Upsell category. So we're going to skip this for just a second and let me talk about the categories 1 through 3. So you can assign a single event up to 3 different categories. So if I check this box here and we said this was a beginner program, so I can assign that to 3 different categories, and you can use a link to get show all events that are in that category, but also on DoubleKnot's calendar, end users are able to filter by categories to just see events that they think make most sense for them. Now going back to upsell category. So if we select the upsell category here, let's say we select that same beginner category. What this will do is allow or prompt the system to have the user check out. When the user checks out, the system will prompt them to sign up for events that are in this category. So this functions sort of as you may be interested in other events within this upsell category here. Next, service hours. You're going to want to skip this field. Test mode. So you can turn test mode on. And what that'll do is this event won't display on the calendar, and you can test this event out all the way to checkout, but you cannot actually check out on this event. So we do have one question that popped up here, and it's a good one here. So can you later change the display from private to public calendar? So yeah, if you create this event and you want to come back, you originally said do not display, you can always come back and change that over to display on public calendar. So the next fields here, these pertain to registration details. So if you're putting a hold on your calendar, so maybe this isn't something that should take registrations, maybe it's an office meeting or something like that, the office is closed. If you don't fill out anything below this field here, and we come down and save, this event is just going to show This event is just going to show on the calendar, and there's not going to be a way for people to actually sign up for that event. So does do not display on public calendar hide an event from public view? It does, unless you have linked that event elsewhere. So if on your site, if you were to link directly to that event, people would still be able to get to it. So these next fields, online registration details. So registration begin date. So if we set a field here, a time here, date and time, people are not allowed to register for this event until that date and time. Registration end date, this is the last day to take registrations for this event. This is a required field if you are taking registrations. So I'm going to put in here, we'll take them all the way up to the day of camp. Next, cost is per. So this determines how pricing is structured for this event, as well as what information you collect. So the first option here, named registrant. If you select this option, we're going to collect the name of each person coming to this event, and we're going to charge per person. So $5 a person, and we're going to charge for each person and collect their names. The next option, named registrant and per registration. So here again, we collect the names, and we have the ability to charge a per person fee as well as a per registration fee. So sort of like one fee for the whole group, or it can also be a fee per person. Unnamed registrant. So this is going to function very similar to the first option. We charge per person here, but we do not collect the names of anyone coming. With that being said, we do collect the information from the purchaser, so you will still have someone's contact information. Unnamed registrant and per registration. So we don't collect the names, and then we have the ability to charge per person or a flat fee for the registration. Lastly, registration skip individual registrants. This one is rarely used, but there are still some use cases. So this one, we do not collect how many people are coming. We just charge a flat fee. So next, this is going to kind of segue into our registrant types conversation as well. So we have single cost versus multiple cost. So single cost is just going to ask how many. So it doesn't say how many what or anything like that. But if we select multiple cost, this gives us the ability to categorize the people coming to our event. So a lot of the times when we see this used, it's things for like adults versus children. And then when the end user comes to register, they select how many adults they're coming and how many children. But you can also charge a different fee here based on adult or children. So if I set that fee, $10 for children and $5 for adult, the next field is minimum per registration. So you can require people to at least bring one adult or at least bring one child. So this is per registration. So per sign up, what's the minimum? And we also have a max per registration. So per individual signing up, what's the maximum number of adults or the maximum number of children they could bring? Next is max capacity. So here we can set a total capacity for the adults or a total for the children. So if our event could really only have 500 children, but we didn't necessarily care how many adults were coming, we could set that here. Next is wait list. So if you set a max per type, you can then set a wait list. So if we wanted to put this at 10, so once we hit 500 registrants, people registering after that will be put on the wait list until there are 10 people, 10 children specifically on that wait list. And by default in DoubleKnot, you are not charged when you're put on the wait list. And also by default, the system handles it on a first person on the wait list, first person off. And then they're sent a notification letting them know that they need to log on and make payment. Next, we have some early discount and late fee questions here. So if we put a date here, if you register by this date, you get this amount off. And if you register after this date, the system's going to charge this additional fee for that registrant type. The last field here, and another thing to point out when using this multiple cost option, is admin use only. So when you select multiple costs, you're required to have at least 2 lines of different registrant types. And a lot of the times that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's just an event for children or just an event for adults. You can always select adults as one of them or children as just one. And then you could select another registrant type. A lot of the times people will create one called admin only. And then if you check this box here, this will allow you to display, how many adults, and then they wouldn't see, the end user would not see the other line that's marked admin use only. All right, so going back over here, these next 3 fields function very similar to these 3 here, except they're combining adults and children. So what's the minimum registrants per registration, the maximum registrants per registration? Well, the minimum is going to combine adults and children, so you must have at least this combination of adults and children. And maximum says no more than this combination of additional children. And then finally, this maximum registrants field here, this is the total capacity for the event. So think about this as like the room capacity. What's the total number of people you can have sign up for this event? Min age, max age. So this is going to require each registrant to enter their birth date, and the system will calculate that, how old they will be at the time of the event and make sure they meet that requirement. And one thing to note is it does apply to both adults and children, and it is in months. Next, members may. So this is by default checked to register anyone. And 99.9% of the time, you're going to want to leave it at register anyone, because those of you with a membership subscription, this members here is not talking about your actual members. This is saying only people with a profile can sign up for this event. Next, we have non-member registrations require. So you can set email to be optional, required, or do not display. Same with telephone here. So if you wanted to collect that from every single person, you could set it to be required. If in my example here, let's say I only want to collect this from the adults. So what I'm going to do is select do not display for both of these, and then we'll come back and look at how we can collect that just for adults. Allow registrations from, again, if you set this to only members who have signed in, this just means people with profiles. So if someone hasn't registered for an event already or doesn't already have a profile within your instance of DoubleKnot, they will not be able to sign up for this. So I would recommend leaving this one at anyone as well. Receipt contact information. So this information is going to show up on the receipt, and this is who they should reach out to with any questions. So this is going to go along with that contact email address up at the top, and this will be who to contact with any questions after they've made that purchase. Next is receipt confirmation message. So this is rich text. This will display on their receipt. And you can, if you don't know how to write, you can type this in plain text, but if you don't know how to code in HTML, one thing we recommend is coming up and building it in this rich text editor here. And if you click source code, you can then copy the source here and paste that down into your receipt confirmation message. And that's the same for the cancellation policy. This will show up on the receipt and it is rich text as well. So you can go ahead and use that same editor at the top and paste what you need to in the cancellation policy. The next piece here is notification. So if you check this box and enter email addresses separated by semicolons, anytime someone makes a purchase or registers for this event, a copy of their email is going to be sent to the email addresses here. Modify registrants. So this one's used every now and then. If you check this box and you set a date here, this allows people who have already signed up to log back into their account and make changes to their registration. It does not let them delete it, but they could come in and update some form information, things like that, but they can't delete their registration, so they would not be able to get their own refund. Log on sign on prompt. So if you set this to none, there's not going to be an option for anyone to sign on. You can set it to optional or create a profile, and then they'll have the option to sign in, create a profile, or check out as a guest. Or you can require them to either log on or create a profile. Next, collect group information. I'm going to set this to yes, allow person registering to create new groups. And what this will do is any type of event where they're coming as a group rather than an individual, this will prompt them with some additional questions to fill out about their group. Prompt for to sign up for eLists. So if you set this to yes, any of your public sign up eLists built within DoubleKnot will display after they make their purchase, prompting them to sign up for one of those eLists. Skip registration details. If we set this option to yes, this is going to skip the main landing page. So anything that we sort of build out up here in this details, that page is going to be skipped and they're going to go right into registering once they click on the link. Ticketing and event ambition. So here we have the ability to change this drop down to issue a ticket for the whole group, which would be one ticket per registration. Issue a ticket for each individual, which will give a ticket per person that signed up. And then the last option, issue a ticket for each individual with in and out privilege. So that means you can check them in and out of the event as they come and go. Once we set this to issue a ticket, we then have the ability to say, do not print this link to the ticket on the receipt. So then the ticket would not be on their receipt. We can set a check-in time. So how many hours before the event can you start checking people in? And then lastly, we can set a reminder up to 72 hours. And this reminder is going to send them an email with their tickets in it. So it'll resend them their tickets however many hours ahead of the event you set that to. Next is payment details. So here, this first piece, payment type, is very important. If there is an event where the people are registering for it, so it's not a calendar hold, but people are actually signing up to register for this event, even if it is free, you do not want it set to none. None has the highest precedence. So if I were to check out for an event, one event that has a payment type of none and another event that was pay online only, I'm not going to pay for that event. It's going to let me check out with no payment. So if people are registering, you'll always want to at least select one of these three items. So pay online only requires them to make a payment based on your payment types that you have configured online. Pay by mail only allows them, will only allow them to mail you a check or pay when they arrive. pay online or by mail. So this sort of gives them the option of either checking that mailbox to make a payment at the office or through the mail, or give them the option to pay with their credit card or another one of your configured options. Convenience fee, if we check this box, you have the ability to add a dollar amount and or a percentage of their total registration for this event as a convenience fee for their purchase. So I did get a good question. I can't stress this enough. So even if your event is free, you'll want to check pay online only. So if you check pay online only and it's a free event, if that's the only event they check out for, they're not going to see anything different. We're not going to ask them for their credit card information. It's going to be the exact same as if payment type was none. So that's a good scenario there. If I were to check out for a free event that has payment type of none, and then I checked out for another event and say it costs $50, it's not going to require me to pay. If those are both in the same shopping cart and one is set to none and one is set to pay online only, the system is not going to require me to pay for that event that is pay online only. Lastly, here we have deposit payments into. So this is where we can select the financial account that we created. And now when anyone makes a purchase of this event, the money is going to flow into this account for financial reporting. So lastly, I'll click save here. And now I have my event under the event list of Day Camp 2020. If I click on this event, one piece we talked about was I just want to collect the email and telephone from adults. So in order to do that, what you're going to want to do is come on this left-hand side to registrant attributes. And so I can select all if I wanted to collect certain information from all of my registrants. But if I'm just looking at adults, if I select adults over here, I can come down and I first have to check this option for show. So this would make it optional. So if I first said primary email is optional, I can then also set it to be required. And I can do the same for telephone. I can make it optional and required. Lastly, when you make this change, you'll always want to click save. So the next piece here is testing this event. So in later webinars, we're going to talk about things like forms and other items within the system regarding calendar activities. But when it comes to testing a calendar activity, there's one piece that's very important. So what I want to do is copy this link here. And you're going to want to go to a browser where you are not logged in. When you're logged into your admin profile, you have sort of special abilities that an end user wouldn't have. You can override capacities. So that can be confusing if you set, only one person per registration. If you're logged in as your admin and you test this out, you'll be allowed to select, as many people for this registration as you want. So I'm going to copy this link. And I'm currently logged in under Google Chrome. So I'm going to hop over to Firefox here. And I'm going to paste that link into my browser. And so this is the main landing page for the event. All my details are going to show up right here. On the left-hand side here, if I were to put in that location of the event, the link to maps would be right here, so I could figure out how to get to the location. One user just asked, should I set up a test user? If your events require logon, definitely set up a test user, but don't use your actual information. Don't, if I wouldn't create a user called Brooks Davis and give it my same email, because eventually you're going to accidentally merge those two accounts. So definitely give it a test name like, Bob user or something like that, and then link it to a separate email address or a fake email address. That way, there's no issues that comes to merging your admin profile in that test account. So I have my details page. If I would have selected skip registration details, this page would be skipped and I would go straight here. So since I set this to optional for the log on option, I can either log on, I can create a new user profile, or I can just continue as a guest. This next page is group information. So some of these fields are configurable, but essentially it is the information about the group coming to the registry or coming to the event. Once I fill out this group information, next I'll click continue. So I set mine to require 1 adult and 1 child. So here it defaults those 2 options, but I can select, here it has a capacity of 500, so I could select all the way up to 500. That would take a long time filling that information out. So for adult 1, I have this option of add someone I've signed up before. Since I just filled out that group information with Susan as the main contact, I can click that option and then click add here, and it's going to default Susan's information in. Next, I can fill out my child. And then I can continue. So this will be the shopping cart page. It's going to give me the breakdown of the items that I'm being charged for. And so that's a pretty basic calendar activity. I could check out and actually make payment. But whenever you test, you definitely want to test in a browser where you're not logged in, so you can't do things like override capacities and things like that. So let's go back here and just talk about a few more pieces. So one thing that's not necessarily utilized that much, but it is very useful for your end users, is participant instructions. So when I select that option, this allows me to put instructions on certain pages. And depending on what items you have, you have in your registration, there could be, up to 1 more additional option or less options than this. So I'm just going to put some instructions here so you can see where these will display. So if we go back to our event and we click edit, so your group instructions are going to display above the group information. So giving them helpful hints on what they need to fill out here. And participant instructions will display on the next page. So making sure they're filling out the correct information. A lot of the times, if you're not collecting adult information for the event and you're just collecting child, this can be helpful to let a parent know that, hey, we're not looking for your information here. We're looking for your child's information so that they don't fill out and register themselves. And then one last piece, just because someone did mention setting an event to none. So if I had set up all my events to none and you're sitting in on this webinar and you're thinking, oh, I need to go change that, what you can do is you can come in and change it on one event and click save. And then if you go to copy attributes down here at the bottom, this allows you to copy pieces of one calendar event. So if I look for my payment type, so right here, I can check this box. So it's going to copy the payment type that's set up on this event, And then I can come over here and I can copy it to additional events. So once I copy that, it's going to change those events that were set to none. It's going to change that to pay online, or whatever different options you select there. It's going to copy those over. So one piece on the wait list. So once you have users that are on the wait list, you can always come in here under the event and go to the wait list section, and you would have the ability to clear people manually from this wait list. So that is going to override the capacity of your event if you select to do so. And another thing to note is if there is a wait list on your event and you register someone as an admin, that will also override the wait list and they'll go straight into the event. All right. Are there any more questions? I think we've gotten to most of them. I do see one here. Can you change the allow registrations from members to anyone? I am going to check in on that just to confirm before I tell you, but I will shoot you over an email after we're done here. So how come at a point of sale station can you not add to the wait list? So I think this is going to come into the same aspect of admin overriding the wait list. It's definitely something I can look into. Any more questions? Okay, I did get one. Okay, yes. Yeah, so in our event, we set this up to, require at least one adult and at least one child. But this question is, what if it's like one adult per every 5 children? So one thing you can do for that is what we call registrant ratios. So on this display here, on the left-hand side, we have this option for registrant ratios. And in here, we can come and we can say require one of which registrant type for every blank. So we could say for every 5 children. And when we save this during the registration, it's not going to let them check out unless they meet this actual ratio. Are there any other questions? All right. Oh, how do you state 2 adults? Okay, so how would you say there at least needs to be 2 adults? So if I'm understanding this correct, you could come in here and if this event requires at least 2 adults, you could set this minimum per registration next to the adult section here. We could set that to 2 and it's going to default them to having 2 adults during this registration. All right. Any last questions here? Okay, one thing to point out, once this video is uploaded, you'll be able to find it under the training videos section. So when you log in up here at the top of your screen, you'll see training videos. If you click this, this will link to all of our training videos from the past as well. I am in a testing environment, so they're not there. But as soon as we get this uploaded, it'll be posted there along with the rest of our training webinars. And with that, thank y'all, and I hope y'all have a good rest of your day. If any additional questions come up, please do reach out to support@doublenot.com.